Hello and welcome back to my blog. I'm going to do another one from my grandpa because I did get some requests for more from Grandpa. And this is just a little reminiscence of his, and it's about apple butter. Something in the wind makes me long for some good old-fashioned apple butter. Just thinking about that tangy, spicy delicacy on a piece of homemade bread right out of the oven of the old wood-burning cook stove makes my mouth water. Put lots of homemade butter on first and let it melt and soak into the bread. Then add a goodly portion of apple butter and everything is hunky-dory. Of course you'll get a lot of it all over your face, but it will wash off without any trouble if you get to it before it dries. Apple butter making started the day before when we took a big load of apples that had been washed and scrubbed down to the cider mill. We made sure we got our own cider, too. We were not going to get stuck with cider from dirty, wormy apples like some people brought to the mill. That mill was a scientific wonder. Apple butter making days were wonderful. We always had lots of help. Ma and the girls and Aunt Rachel and her girls with some extra neighbors were busy all forenoon peeling apples. It always was lots of fun to have people around. Our lives were quiet and lonely, and company made life more interesting. The men would come for dinner. No one seemed to be worried about anything. Everything was peaceful and cozy. There was no disturbing news of any kind. We just had ourselves and the two beautiful copper kettles out by the woodpile. Right after dinner, the men would start the wood fire and fill the kettles with cider. This was boiled down until it was thick and syrupy. Then the apples the women had prepared were added, and we began to stir it with a wooden hoe with a long handle to keep us away from the heat. The hoe part had some holes bored in the end so the creamy mixture would ooze through and get a good mix. This stirring job was the hardest part of the work. It didn't make much difference where you stood. The smoke always blew in your face. Only the experts would do the stirring, and there were only a few such experts. The rest would sit around and rest and talk. Someone had to keep the fire going full blast, of course. At a certain point in the process, we added sugar, cinnamon, and lots of other spices. Each family had certain flavors they liked best. Our apple butter never tasted like that of anybody else, and of course, ours was the best. Others didn't know how to flavor it. Some of them put things in we never heard of, and that gave it a strange taste. When one stirrer couldn't take it any longer, another would take over. This job had to keep going without a minute's stop. Ma was the chief expert on the whole project. She could tell if it was getting too hot, and someone would have to yank some wood out of the fire. If it scorched, it was a calamity. She knew how much of everything to put in. She didn't have it written down, she just knew it, and she knew when it was done. Sometimes it wouldn't get done until after dark, and she'd have to use a lantern to inspect it. Lots of times I'd have to go to bed before they poured it. I'd lie there and listen to the talk and the laughter, and then I'd hear them pour it into gallon crocks and carry it down to the cellar. Then I'd hear Ma scouring the kettles. If she left them till the next day, they would get all gummy and sticky. Everyone who helped would take some home, and we'd do the same when we went to help them with their apple butter. That's how I knew that ours tasted the best of any. Often, some member of our family would complain about how the apple butter tasted, and we would find it was not our apple butter. We'd all be glad when that crock was empty so we could have some of our own. One time, one of our ritzy neighbors bought a newfangled apple peeler. She was always way ahead of the rest of us with such things. She had the first cream separator in the neighborhood. When she set up her mechanical apple peeler, everyone stopped to see how it would work. Most of us decided we didn't like it. It wasted too much of the apple. You had to cut out the bad spots anyway. After the first excitement was over, the rest of the women went back to their work, and she was left all alone. No one said a word when she finally gave up and came over with the rest of the women and started to peel with a paring knife. She could use it at home, but she soon caught on that we didn't fancy such a contraption with our apple butter. Apple butter was the main spread in those days. We used it on the bread for our school lunches. By the time we ate bread that had been spread early that morning, it was soaked clear through. But of course, that just made it better. We had it on the table for every meal, except on Sunday or any other time when we had company. Then the high-class jellies and jams were brought out. No one would ever think of serving common old apple butter to guests. Apple butter was good on top of smearcase, later called cottage cheese. Some of the family liked it on fried mush, but I preferred maple syrup or some other kind of molasses. I'm not sure they really liked it better either. I think maybe it was just because it was less expensive. We've tried commercial apple butter many times. It simply does not hit the spot. It lacks something ours used to have. Maybe it is the smoke and ashes that got mixed up with ours. Maybe it was not stirred properly. Maybe they did not use a copper kettle. Maybe they did not peel the apples properly, or maybe the cider they used was not the right kind. I just know it does not taste as good as the kind we used to make when I was a kid. And when he was a kid was a long time ago. Make it a great day, and bye for now.